Welcome to the next session of In Today's World. I'm here with my friend Helen Brenner, and we'll be discussing NLP. She'll be explaining a bit about what that means and how it applies to the world we live in today and how it's helpful for many people. And I'd just like to explain a little bit about In Today's World. It's a podcast that examines mindfulness in light of contemporary issues in society. And today's contemporary issue that we'll be talking about is NLP and as well as different levels of hypnosis. So thank you so much for being here, and we'll dive right into the introductions. So first, I'd like to welcome Helen Brenner onto this podcast. Thank you so much again for being here. Helen is a trauma healing coach. She specializes in several levels of hypnosis and also a lot of unique hypnotic change work. She taps into the client's unconscious as a way to understand more about their individual decision making in their conscious lives. And it's a very effective and powerful way of helping people to transport them through the process of change. And I, as per tradition on this show, I always name a superpower about my guests, something that I find that is a unique attribute. And then my guests will also say a unique attribute that that my guest is picking up on, me and what I put out into the world. So for Helen, I'm picking up on her bravery. She has a lot of unique attributes, but I'm choosing bravery because she delves into channels and avenues that not a lot of people, I think, would dare to go into, and just really a courageous soul to work with the types of trauma and the people that she sees and just guide them with such a supportive hand and presence through their healing journeys. So thank you so much, Helen, for being here.
Thank you, Isla. I get like tears in my eyes. That's beautiful. Wow. I love that. I really love that.
Oh,
And when I think of you, I see somebody, I feel somebody who really can see inside someone else's soul. You have this ability to just kind of be as close to someone else without, as close as you can be to somebody else, that connection that you get and the understanding that you have. I can feel that when we talk. I can feel that you understand and you enjoy understanding people, and you
yeah.
really understand that journey within other people. So that's a superpower for you, because some people might feel a little bit like, oh my God, she knows me, but I think it's absolutely beautiful that you can really know people from the inside out. So I'm really honored to be here, and this is going to be really fun.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I feel like ringing the singing bowl. The singing bowl is very ceremonial. It is a way of clearing energy in the integrative wellness world, which is a world that focuses on holistic healing. Singing bowls are used very prevalently in this world, and it's a way to send the good energy out and at times let go of what we need to let go of. So I'll sound it. So thank you so much for that um, warm um, praise that you gave me. And I'm a coach as well in wellness coaching, and I emphasize mindfulness and emotional intelligence through the arts in my work. And I would like to transition into our topic, as I usually do, by reading a poem. And it might, in some ways, be obvious why I chose the poem, but I'll explain a little bit why I chose it after I recited.
Okay.
So this is called My Symphony by William Henry Channing. To live content with small means, to seek elegance rather than luxury, and refinement rather than fashion, to be worthy, not respectable, and wealthy, not rich, to study hard, think quietly, talk gently, act frankly, to listen to stars, birds, babes, and sages with open heart, to bear all cheerfully, do all bravely, await occasions, hurry never. In a word, to let the spiritual, unbidden and unconscious, grow up through the common. This is to be my symphony.
Um,
So I chose this poem because it talks about someone's journey through life and the necessity, the deep yearning to integrate the spiritual, the unconscious into one's experience. And this is his, I'm speaking from the poet's perspective, although could be from any perspective. The person described in this poem, that this is their beautiful array of life experience. And I picked it because it had some unconscious description in there in terms of tapping into the unconscious, which is what we'll be talking about today, and also the noticing of the world around, the riches of the world, the wealth of the world in terms of nature and the luxury surrounding us. That's really where the wealth is in the world. Um, and that's very much the outlook of mindfulness, to be open and present and nourished by the abundance in the world.
mm,
So that's why I chose it. Of course, poems have many different interpretations, but
yeah,
just explaining my own interpretation and how it's relevant to our session today.
I like it. I
Thank
like
you.
it a lot. I actually like to have it written down so I can see it again.
I will send it to you. I
Mhm.
have it written down right in front of me, but I'll be more than happy to send it.
Well,
Thank
thank you.
you. And before we dive deeper into the topic, maybe we can just take a little bit of a moment to exchange some sentences about the meditation that we completed before this podcast. Helen Brenner and I did about 5 minutes of meditation each before the start of the podcast. And I can, I always volunteer first if the other person wants me to start. That unless you want to jump in, either way.
I'll follow you.
Okay, great. So so we're just exchanging phrases or words or reflections on the meditation. And for me, and even just where we're coming from in terms of how we're approaching meditation, like if we're completely new to the experience or if we've had different experiences over the years in meditation. However, we're coming in, it's fine. And that's how we're coming in. It's just a reflection. So, my reflection on my meditation was that it really was very critical for me to have it right before the podcast. It totally prepared me. And even though I've been meditating for years and it's part of my work that I do as a practitioner and coach, it almost felt like a new experience right before this podcast.
That's really cool.
Thank
I
you.
I as much as I work in the unconscious mind, I don't do enough of the meditation, like just to stop. I've been working on it. It's something that I need to be doing because it's the basis of the self-hypnosis. And so today, I actually did some of the work that I do, and I brought in what I wanted to, and I'll explain that later. But I brought in my curiosity to talk about how what you do and what I do are so like similar and compatible. And I'm curious just to, so the meditative was just feeling very relaxed and very interested, and that's what I was noticing. Like, this is going to be really fun to do this and be able to learn and to teach and to show other people, and perhaps anybody who's interested in either of them. So I was curious about the connection here today.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm glad you are coming in with that curiosity. Here, I'll ring the bell again just to honor that, what you just said. And just to bring us back to the topic, we'll be talking about different levels of hypnosis, and Helen Brenner will be explaining NLP and the relevance of that method to her work with clients and overall in our world. And we'll be talking about it also in connection with mindfulness.
Mm.
So, with that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Helen, and she'll delve deeper into the topic.
Okay. Well, thank
Thank
you. So I have, just to give you a little bit about me, I have I'm a certified professional coach. I have a PCC level at the International Coach Federation level, and I have a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in mental health counseling. And I found this coaching change work specifically, and the NLP and hypnosis and an eye movement emergence. And so what I do when I work with people is I do a very meditative state, because meditation is the top level of the beginning of hypnosis, and all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. And so you have to be able to, I mean, I can't make somebody calm their mind. I can lead and guide them into a calmer state,
you.
but ultimately it's their mind that's doing the work. It's doing that relaxation. And so the mindfulness and the meditation is the top level of what begins that journey into the realm of the mind. That's a significant part. I mean, I've seen everywhere from, somewhere around 90% of our brain's activity is outside of our conscious awareness. And so that meditation takes you out of the conscious mind that makes up all kinds of stories, and then takes us into the sensory channel where we're feeling and we're seeing the things in our mind's eye, and hearing the things in our mind's ear, the things that those words we hear, the sounds we hear, and then of course the body where the emotions live, and the feeling that we experience. So when I work with people, I do a lot of it's mindfulness. What I do, it's mindfulness. I would say it's unconscious mindfulness is what I do. So I need to have people be able to be mindful and be in a meditative state in order for me to take their conscious the conscious mind offline, so that the rest of the mind can come in and reveal what patterns they're running, dysfunctional patterns, helpful patterns, things they believe, and things they want to shift and change and create new for themselves. So I think these two models go very well together. And so, yeah, so that's pretty much in a nutshell what I do. And I work with people who, trauma finds me. It's always been, I'm a survivor of sexual abuse. And so I've been very interested for decades on having to heal from traumas. So that's what got me on this road in the first place, 40 years ago, and learning and understanding. And so, but trauma doesn't just have to be somebody who has sexual abuse or child abuse or things like that. It can be people who were bullied, or people who were made fun of, anything that you've carried with you that changes significantly how you approach the world. And so so when I say trauma, if it's traumatic to you, it's traumatic to you. Some people have very bad traumas that other people would be not affected by. Some people have something that's very quote unquote minor
Mhm.
that they're horribly affected by. So it's all depending on how people receive and perceive and heal through whatever they went through. So yeah, it's pretty much what I do.
Wow, that's a very in-depth description and just had so many layers. I appreciate you explaining what you do. Mm, For those who are really new to neuro-linguistic programming, is there a way to perhaps describe a little bit exactly how you lead someone, facilitate the method? I know I had one beautiful session with you, which I really enjoyed. Thank you so much. And I can elaborate a little bit. But for those who are starting off from absolutely no knowledge, having never heard the words neurolinguistic programming until today, could you give a little bit of a technical understanding of the actual method itself so that people can envision it?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. So neurolinguistic programming was created in the early 70s. There was people, Grinder and Bandler, who were in college in California. One of them was a professor, one was an associate professor, and they started recognizing or wanting to understand how people got really good results from their change work. And so they studied Milton Erickson, who's the American father of hypnosis, who was absolutely brilliant, and he did conscious trance work. And they studied two other therapists who were Virginia Satir and Fritz Perls. And so they wanted to really, they studied people, and they went out and they studied golf pros. They studied all kinds of people to see what people were doing that left a place of excellence. What were you doing? What were you doing that was the best way of doing these things? And they studied and modeled and practiced on each other. And so neuro-linguistic is, so the neuro is anything that has a neural point to it, like anything in your body that has any kind of neuro connection
Mhm.
is what's going on. Somebody might say, oh, I have a knot in my stomach when they get anxious, or they might feel, they might feel that giddy in their shoulders or their back or whatever when they're excited. Um, so that's all the neuro part of it. That's how your body communicates. That's how um yeah, communicates. And so then the linguistic is how we communicate, whether it's the words we use, the inflection we use, the body language, the facial expressions. And so it's all in the language of communicating with ourselves and with other people. And then the programming came out. It really should be, if it was today, it would be neuro-linguistic patterning and repatterning. Programming was the big thing back in the 70s. So that's kind of how the word came about. And so it basically takes people and gives them an understanding, a deep understanding, an unconscious understanding of what patterns they're running and why they've chosen to do that. Um, there's a lot of unconscious permission from people, or somebody will, like a family, for example, a family who is, they're all firefighters, and then, generational firefighters, and then one of them wants to be a police officer. Well, there could be conflict because it's like unspoken. We don't do it that way. That's not how we do it. So that person is now going off the norm. So he's creating his own pattern compared to that kind of pattern. And that's kind of like a simplistic kind of way of looking at it, but it kind of gives an idea. And so then what I do is I do NLP in hypnosis, which takes the NLP, which is based because Grinder and Bandler studied Milton Erickson tremendously, and use this in this change model. But NLP and hypnosis was created to really bring in the conscious trance work. So when I'm working with somebody, I'm not having them in a deep trance like you would think of hypnosis. I have them in a mindful place, like a mindfulness meditation place,
Mhm.
and then be able to bring all these things out in the sensory channel, the see, hear, feel, taste, smell, and sense, and get the communication. Um, and so I can do a deeper trance, but this is very effective. And I do the trance work, the deeper hypnosis to kind of anchor in the learning. But I really don't use that as much as I do like the conscious trance work. And then on top of that is eye movement. It's eye movement emergence and reemergence. It's using the eye movement in the socket to make a direct link to the unconscious mind. So when you move things in the visual field, you can actually move things out of the body and turn it into a visual field. And that gives you opportunity to disassociate from it, to disconnect from the emotional connection to it, and then be able to learn something from it, and then discard what you don't want, um, and keep what you do want. And it works very well for trauma because or anything, grief, anything that we don't want to experience. So I get just enough feeling or just enough of the information from the brain to be able to bring it into the conscious place and say, okay, so now what do you want to do with this? And so I tell my clients, I don't hear stories. I don't want to know the story. I don't want to know the background. Um, because that's the conscious mind speaking, and I don't want to get into that channel. And so a lot of it is very quick. It's, if it hurts for just enough, just like, if this is the view and this is the pain, it's like this. That's all you're going to feel when it happens. And then you change out real quick. So it's very effective. And I've experienced it myself from my own traumas. I am a sexual abuse survivor, I'm a rape survivor. I'm also a widow. I've had my stuff that I've used this with, and it's just a brilliant, just a brilliant model. My client yesterday said, I worked with him once last week, and he said, with big bright eyes, he said, "Oh my God," he goes, "this stuff really works." He goes, "I didn't think it was going to work." His friend had referred me, and he said, "I didn't think it was going to work." And he was like, he said, "I went an entire week and I didn't have any panic attacks." He said, "Oh my God, I can't even believe this." And I said, "Yeah, it works." So that's what I do. I work in the part of the brain that's driving the system. I go under the hood, for example. People are driving the car and all the other stuff is happening. And I'm the mechanic that gets in there and changes all that around for them. So, nutshell.
That's very powerful. And again, that speaks to your bravery, just going into maybe an uncharted territory that a lot of people tend not to delve into. I feel like you get a lot of credit for going into the unconscious, and particularly at a time where I feel like we try to emphasize in our society being quote unquote rational and understanding our behavior. And I give you a lot of credit for tapping into that place that maybe people don't understand, and they're still developing, and to acknowledge that we're all unfinished works in progress, we're all healing, and just to acknowledge that and bring that to the surface, because
Yeah.
many times we don't even know what we're healing from, or that there are wounds there. And then
Oh, yeah.
appreciate the grace in which you work with it and you facilitate other people's healing journeys.
Yeah. The trauma when I work with people is the low hanging fruit. Underneath all after as I'm climbing up the tree and getting rid of the low hanging fruits,
Hmm.
that's when I find the harder things to get to that are my dad, whenever I suggested something, my dad called me a fool.
Hmm.
They could have been, have gone through child abuse or sexual abuse, but that sentence that came out of that person's mouth affected them more than the traumas. So once I get the big stuff out of the way, which I don't even have to, quite frankly, I don't even need it. It can stay in the unconscious. I don't even need it. Because it may, like I said, that may not be what's the problem. It may be. I noticed with me, I went through therapy for decades, and I just kept feeling there's something missing. And I knew now what was missing was my unconscious mind. But um, I didn't really realize how much being bullied by kids,
Hmm.
being bullied by teachers, or being told that I couldn't ever learn or whatever, affected me. I concentrated years, most of my life, I concentrated on healing from the sexual abuse.
Hmm.
But the other stuff had more of an impact that I never even realized. And so You got to get to the right, you got to get to what is bothering the mind. And the only way you can do that is to get into the unconscious mind, because you can sit there and try to figure it out all you want, but that's not where the answers are.
Right, right. I'm totally on board with that, and there's so much evidence in support of what you're saying, that the unconscious mind is really where we need to channel a lot of our energies as healers, and not so much on the conscious mind, which forms a lot of our narratives. And
Mhm.
it's easy in many ways to deceive ourselves through those narratives that we bring about. So the unconscious mind is a really effective place to start, and to help people to move themselves from a place of maybe feeling victimized in many cases to
Mm.
surviving, and to feel like they can shine their light and however they feel is best for them in this world. So it's wonderful you're facilitating their journeys in some way. That's
Yeah,
really
I'm honored, and I'm lucky, and the path that I got on, I mean, I when I look back at this path, it's the perfect path. And that's, it's beautiful to be able to have been able to been exposed to these different things, and to be able to bring it out to the world is it's I feel like it's my honor. I feel like it's my I don't want to say calling, but I feel like if I don't, then I'm just I feel like people can really use this, and it's a way of just shedding that stuff. People literally will say, "Oh my God, it feels like I've got like this cloak on me." And I'm like, "Take it off." They're like, "Oh my God, I can breathe." And I'm like, "Yes, yes, you can."
right. Exactly. That speaks to the visualization aspect. If I can sum it up, that to me, it reminded me almost like of a choose your own adventure story, but visually, where you kind of guide people through different options and you have them choose, okay, this experience this visualization, or this visualization, or this color or that color, or if it's a shape, this shape or that shape. And you have them go through this process of figuring it out, and you watch the eye movements of your clients, and that reveals to you a lot in terms of where their unconscious mind is. um, and you kind of let the stories that they say kind of drop to the side, that that's not the focus anymore, that the focus right now is where they gravitate to in terms of colors and shapes. All of these are visualizations. And then through that process of decision making, you're able to say, okay, at the end, it's let that burden go, let that, whatever it is, the shape, the
Yeah,
cloak, whatever imagery they have in their mind, just to kind of let it go. And it is a beautiful process, because a lot of these emotional wounds can really feel like a heavy weight, or they do take on sort of imagery within oneself that we're not even aware of, speaking about the unconscious. So I appreciate how you integrate that element as well into your healing practice, um, because so much of it isn't about what's spoken, it's about what's felt. And I feel like the methods you use, the levels of hypnosis, really
yeah,
tap into that in a very effective way.
yeah. Yeah. It's it the uh journaling for change, to move away from something you don't want,
Mhm.
it's not effective. And even journaling to write what you do want is not effective unless you have the unconscious buy-in to it, right? And so you can come up with ideas and things to do. And then you check in with yourself and say, okay, what do I see, hear, feel predominantly?
Mhm.
What is my unconscious communicating about this?
Mhm.
That's where, that's where you're going to find the true answers, as opposed to, when you talk about something. Well, one, when you talk about something, if I can give anybody anything this today, is if you talk about anything negative, please say it in the past tense. I know in the past, I experienced feelings of anxiety. In the past, I experienced feelings of depression. In the past, but when you're feeling really good, say it in any tense you want to, and say it to your heart's desire. Because the more you say things that are negative, it's like when the affirming talk works, right? If affirming talk works, non-affirming talk works as equally, right? So people, it's like you say positive things out loud. So you can't say both, because the brain's going to pick up on things and it's going to bias towards the negative. It's going to look for the things that are that it sees as a problem. It's just the way it's built. And so if I can give anybody anything today, it's, don't harbor on the problem, because you're re-encoding it. You're just, the more you focus on, the more the brain focuses on, period. So if you say I'm depressed or I'm anxious, the brain's, it's almost like a little recorder back there going, we're depressed. Okay, we're depressed. I'm going to keep doing that for you more. You don't want to do that. You want to immediately today, beginning today, speak in a whole different language. Again, there's the neuro-linguistic programming, which is a language. So speak a different language. Speak your brain, because it's like a sponge. It's like a little kid. It's paying attention to absolutely everything, and it's sorting for things that are familiar to it. And when it finds something that's familiar, it's going to act on it just based on how it's designed. So please, if you can do anything going forward, don't speak in anything negative in the past, whichever way you're looking at this.
Right. That's really important because if I can add on to what you're saying, we're speaking to our unconscious mind as well when we say things. So
Yep.
that's why you're really emphasizing that it's incredibly important to speak in past tense so a person doesn't ingrain those habits in
Right.
their mind on an unconscious level because it's just amazing how much of our behavior is rooted in the unconscious. I mean, you were giving statistics like 95%, 90 to 95% of our everyday behavior is rooted in unconscious patterns.
Right.
And to me, that's really incredible considering how much of our lives um, we feel like there's the illusion of control we feel like we're in control of, especially in our society that,
Yeah.
again, as I mentioned earlier, we're emphasizing a lot of logic and we feel like we're rational, which is really not so much the case, especially under this model
Yeah.
of human understanding. And
Yeah.
if you look around the world, we're really not, as logical as sometimes our culture promotes. And so the idea of talking to oneself is really powerful and what words to say. And I'm sure you would recommend, also speaking, positively more, that really to kind of understate the negative. If you have to speak negatively, that's what, you would say, to speak in past tense. But in terms of the positive, what you really do want to bring out into your life, just to emphasize that even more.
Yeah. And the conscious mind is such a small percentage of our brain's activity. So the speaking out the mouth and the hearing going in and the thinking are all three different parts of the brain. So it goes out the mouth. We are literally talking to ourselves everything we say, because the brain doesn't know where it's coming from. And the
Mhm.
unconscious mind is, it's not rational. It doesn't look at something and say, hey, that's really not a good idea. It does it because it's learned how to do it. People don't necessarily want to have anxiety. But the unconscious mind has only figured out that that's the only way to cope with something. And so it learns all these things by what we've experienced and what people have told us. And so much of what we tell ourselves, so much about what we tell ourselves. So it's really important to recognize how, and the other thing about this is, every night the brain, kind of cleans house, and eventually there's that whole, if you don't use it you lose it kind of a concept.
Mhm.
And what happens is the neural connections, they atrophy and they clean up, and they could even be removed. And so the brain's constantly like disconnecting things and getting rid of things. And so the more you don't do certain things, the
Mhm.
less the brain's going to be doing it, and you're literally going to change the structure of the brain as far as how those neural connections are. So by changing your verbiage, can and recognizing, how these things that it's doing are doing it to serve us. Everything it does for positive intent. It's a positive intention. It doesn't know any different. And so when you start teaching it different ways, it will start to be more of what we erase the blackboard and write your own rules on there and say, no, this is how I want to react to this, as opposed to what it's done before. So just changing the verbiage is going to make a significant difference in how your brain hears things and encodes things. So yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Such a wonderful way of flipping that around instead of being negative and getting caught up in the negativity, like a lot of our thoughts tend to do,
Mhm.
to really flip that around and be very positive and gentle with
Right.
ourselves. Just wondering if you might be able to give an example. Let's say someone did something, made a mistake. Are What are some ways? What are some sentences as maybe we're going to sleep, we can say to ourselves that kind of can rewire those pathways that, you know, from speaking to ourselves.
Well, we can bring in mindfulness right there. We can bring in your practice right there. And it's a matter of using the mindfulness to bring ourselves into a state of self hypnosis. And what I mean by that is as you are anywhere,
Mhm.
that you can get into a mindful state. You can even do it consciously. Like I can be talking to you and notice in my legs if I'm feeling it. Like me, my my anxious feelings, when they have come up in the past,
Mhm.
come up in my legs. So I could notice that and say, as I'm talking to somebody, and be able to kind of like dual mind myself and be like, okay, what's happening here? Why am I feeling this? And then, so when you're laying down at night and you're getting into a meditative state, you're just kind of relaxing, because sleep is a form of like, there's the mind's levels. And
Mhm.
so hypnosis, a deep hypnosis, is right before the sleep, right? And then a little bit up here, and then I come around here, and then mindfulness is about there, and somewhere up here is conscious, right? And so you just go a little bit lower. And so as you're laying there, it's not necessarily a matter of 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 giving yourself questions or things or sentences. It's more like, well, I guess it is. It's, what am I feeling? What am I feeling? What do I see, hear, feel? People who are visual might see pictures, may see images. People who are more auditory would hear people's voices. They might hear sounds or music or whatever. And then people who are kinesthetic, which is feeling,
Mhm.
would notice things in their body. And so it's a matter of taking a deep breath and just allowing yourself to kind of go into a more meditative place,
Mhm.
and be with curiosity, say, okay, brain, I've got this feeling in my stomach right now. Can you just kind of give me more information? What are you doing for me? Why are you giving this sensation?
Mhm.
Because usually if it's something like that, it could be a feeling of dread or whatever it is, or depression or whatever it is. And just say, just notice that. Just take that mindfulness time to be in an unconscious mindfulness place, and just say, what is that meaning for me? What are you doing? It's because the brain is doing everything to serve us. It's working very hard on our behalf,
Mhm.
and it's recognizing things and hearing things that are similar and familiar. And it learns by difference, and it sorts by same. So if it sees the same thing, it's gonna, or anything that feels is relatively close, it's going to put it into the same bucket and it's going to react to what it has learned to do. And so when you start learning why it's doing these things, why you're experiencing these see, hear, feels, the auditory, the visual, auditory, kinesthetic, brain, why is this, what are you doing this for? Why is this here? And allow the messages to start coming through. And of course, there's more to the techniques that I use, but that's a good place to start because it's a place of being able to have a new relationship with your unconscious mind, which is the
Mhm.
driver of you. It's who you are. It literally is the foundation of who you are. And so by being able to be curious as opposed to frustrated. People get very frustrated and they think, oh my God, I can never do this. I'll never be able to blank or blah, 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 blah. Wait a minute. Is that true? Do I always have to be anxious if I'm doing public speaking?
Mhm.
Probably somebody told me because that's one of those things they tell you. Oh, that's like the second most anxiety provoking thing you can do. I don't know who thought it was a good idea to tell people that, but you encoded that in people's brains. But
Mhm.
is that really true for you? And so just take a deep breath and just close your eyes and go inside and notice what's going on in here and all that stuff that's out of your awareness and just start to build a relationship with who you are on the inside. We know our heart, we know all our blood work, we know all that stuff, but we don't know this. We we don't have a connection to that. And that's driving everything. And so you take it all and it can, it'll give you a whole new perspective on who you are as a whole person.
Wow. Wow, that's really powerful.
It
Um,
is because it's the brain is, if you think about people who have panic attacks, people who have depression, it's working really, really hard, but people are exhausted. But if you can get in there and find out what has caused the pattern to run in the first place, imagine the power of your mind when it's not worrying about so much anymore, that you've taken away its burdens and you can collectively, like say collectively, the whole thing up here, collectively create what you want in your life. And that is powerful.
wow. Wow. Right. It gives us more self-efficacy in a realm where it's generally thought of to be out of our control
Yep.
in the unconscious, that we're bringing that back under our own
Yep.
auspices and trying to invite, as you said, a spirit of inquiry, of curiosity. Why are these feelings here? Because we have to understand that we our mind and our bodies, they're smart. It's a smart system. It's just, it speaks to us in a different way than maybe our rational society tends to espouse, but we're very much in tune with life, on an unconscious level, and we just have to be able to understand and work with whatever messaging our minds and our bodies are giving us in a form of, aches or pains, or as you mentioned, panic attacks or depression. We have to understand that those are important messages. Why are they arising, and how can we work with them and communicate with them to alleviate whatever they're trying to communicate to us?
Yep. That's a really good description. It's building a relationship that we've never known that we could even have in the first place.
Right, right. I feel like a lot of times symptoms are just easily dismissed, like, oh, I have a stomach ache. And it's
Yes.
not really trying to tell me anything. I mean, that's generally what our culture likes, it kind of uh, tends to think, is that, if we have different aches and pains, it's more to be dismissed. It's not to be looked at further. But I really appreciate your method, which kind of holds the body and holds the unconscious up in a very high light and says, okay, what can I learn from this? What can I gather to help me improve myself, to help me let go of what I need to let go of, maybe to embrace what I need to embrace
Mm.
more of, to become a a healthier, more well-rounded, more uh, to have a greater sense of well-being in my life? What do I need to harness more of in my life? And those signals, those aches and pains can be guideposts in terms of you need to switch directions, or you need to reconfigure this life that you're living. Maybe you need to try something new or develop something more. Maybe I'm not listening to my inner self as much. Maybe there can be those sorts of messages happening.
People are not listening to I think people are not listening to their inner selves all the time. You know, the brain does these things. It doesn't really like a brain will worry you to an ulcer. You know, we got the outcome of an ulcer, the brain doesn't care because the brain was like, yeah, but I'm supposed to be doing this.
Mhm.
And then of course, then you have the ulcer. So then it switches its pattern to that, you know. So it doesn't start out with it doesn't start out with the best information in the first place. And yeah, and so um having that connection, we learn so many things in school that are so irrelevant to who we are as people, and then we go out in the world and we try to interact with other people who don't know anything about themselves either, and it's, that's why relationships are so difficult. That's why divorce is so high. That's why children are, there's the whole gamut of stuff that's happening out there because people are just not aware of what's causing them to be what they're doing.
So this connects really well with self-awareness and finding
Yes.
that foundation in understanding oneself. And what I can gather from what you're saying is that it's very important to have that self-understanding. And this is a piece of the puzzle. These methods of hypnosis and NLP are very important in terms of developing that self understanding so we can be stronger people for ourselves and other people. Without that self awareness, as you're saying, there's so many drawbacks in our society. um, I'm almost wondering if maybe we should start there as a society in terms of how can we be more aware of ourselves and then delve into different disciplines and areas of study. But the foundation, I mean, it's a radical way of thinking about it, but
Yeah.
self-awareness is, I think, critical in many aspects of life, including this. It's almost could be argued to be a foundation of life, and we need to encourage that more, I think, in all of our systems.
Mhm. I
Um,
mean, imagine little kids. I mean, little kids are pre-verbal, perhaps. They may not understand it, but if you start early in people's lives and say, as a parent, why are you crying? And trying to understand that because in the beginning, we don't, we communicate the best we can in
mhm.
the hopes that someone will come take care of us because we can't. And so every step along the way from the very beginning of life, if our needs aren't met, our brain is creating a new pattern of what to do in response to things. And so as children grow up and be able to say, what are you experiencing right now? Take a deep breath. What are you feeling right now? What's happening in your body? Why are you crying? Why are you stomping your feet? As opposed to shutting them down and saying, you better behave. And then as with adults, like, why do I keep getting into the same relationship over and over again? Because your brain is looking for the same pattern over and over again because it's trying to learn. And so when you get all that, you get who you are. And then you go and you create the life you want, the career you want, the relationships you want, where you live, what you do, what you eat, who you are. It's all the foundation of who we are as ourselves. It's the most intimate relationship you can have with yourself, to really know who you are. And people are not taught to do that. They're not taught to be self-aware. It could be seen as frou-frou, for example. I mean, to be able to feel things,
Mhm.
it's shut that down. You can't do that because they can't do it themselves. So I think that if people all over the world had more of a sense of themselves and what's driving them, it would just be so much, it would be hugely different. So, but we start from where we can and we touch who we can. and we make their lives better the way we can.
Right, right, right. I appreciate your emphasis on early intervention, if I can call it that, like the awareness early in one's life, how to deal with emotions. And of course, people can be reconditioned, through the methods that we've been talking about, NLP and forms of hypnosis. And I'm sure there are other modalities available, but just to really be aware that we can change. Like if we're headed down a path that maybe isn't good for us, like there are these methods available. And if, I don't know, if we're about to become parents, this is something, to consider from an early age, that really we can develop the methods for ourselves. We don't have to follow the examples of other people around us, or um, maybe our parents, that we can innovate and have these skills, encourage these skills within our children if we need. And I'm sure even for older individuals as well, that it really helps. And to be in a supportive space, I mean, you provide like such a supportive, comfortable space for exploration and to be non-judgmental, that really helps as well as the repatterning happens,
Mhm.
to not judge ourselves for making past mistakes, to just realize like the past is in the past and we're moving forward now.
And the past is in the past, and you did what you did with the best you had at the time.
Right.
And I work with people as young as their early 20s. I've worked with people as in the late 60s. Um, Anybody at any time can change. There's no age limit or on restrictions on being able to get a better understanding of who you are.
It's really beautiful and offers so much hope for the world.
Right?
Yeah. So I'm assuming one has to work with a coach or a counselor such as yourself for this sort of
Yeah.
self-awareness to be brought out through NLP or hypnosis. Is that correct? Or can people
Yeah.
model?
Um, so there's the emerge model, um, uh, which is the eye movement, the advanced eye movement. There's a very few of us. It's a new uh, concept, not new concept. It's a new method based on decades of research and applying it. It's like it's improving upon the improvement upon the improvement. And so no, there's not that many people that do what I do. I'm going to say few, uh, seven, eight. So yeah, I mean, you could find somebody who does NLP. You're not going to have the hypnotic trance of it as much as what I do. And you could find someone who does it, and there's very few that know NLP and hypnosis that practice it. So someone like me is, I hate to say it like this, but yeah, someone like me is what, if you really want that deep, quick change, that deep, quick pain, low pain, low pain. I can't guarantee it's not going to hurt, but it's not going to hurt that much. And then I have like I said, I have the psychology bachelor's and the mental health counseling master's, where I have a deep understanding of human behavior. I worked in substance treatment. So I work with people who were in the rock bottom of life. They were homeless, they were addicted, they were in jail, they were down the bottom. And so I've been able to really get a really good round idea of, and I'm also an admin of a sexual abuse group and which I've been facilitating survivors of sexual abuse groups for probably about 20 years. And I'm an admin on one on Facebook, and then a child abuse group. And so, I see people, I did a research study when I was in college about therapeutic outcomes for people who were survivors of sexual abuse. And so I know what's missing. I knew already what was missing. And this really answers that call to what's not being provided out there. So, yeah. So, yeah. So someone like me is what you need for something like this. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Well, wonderful. Kudos to you for offering that, especially when it's not readily offered. I'm glad. Again, this speaks to your bravery to offer something that isn't readily available, and I'm sure it's very much appreciated. Um, so, just in terms of practical steps that people can take, so you're advising just before, going to bed each night or whenever people go to bed, just to, if there are any pain symptoms, just to have that spirit of inquiry to, why is there pain, spirit of curiosity.
Yeah, I would say 24 hours a day. I
Okay.
would say I'm in the car and I want to ram the car in front of me, or I'm really pissed off at the car behind me. Take a deep breath and just notice what you're experiencing. That car behind you has told your brain something that's putting you into a fight state, for example. For me, I figured out, for me, this is everybody's individual. For me, I recognized that people who are tailgating are bullies in cars, and I was bullied. So that represented to my brain, that represented something it's experienced before. And so back when I was little, I didn't fight back, but I seem to have learned to fight back in a car years ago. I would get apoplectic about it. And now I'm just like, I move over, there you're a bully. You're a bully in a car. That's how my brain had processed it. And now it's just like, okay, that's not my, I'm going to stay in my own self. Um, you could be, you could be, your husband comes home from work and uh, he doesn't want to hear what you have to say. He wants to go in the man cave or whatever it is. And so you recognize something. So let's take a deep breath and say, what am I experiencing right now? What does it mean to me? Well, it means to me that I really missed him and I really need someone to talk to. I'm saying this from personal experience. I need someone to talk to, and he's here and I really want to share my day with him. And I feel like I've been kind of pushed off. And so that could be part of a pattern of when you're little and you came home from school and you had some really good news and they went out of the house and said, well, I'll tell you, you can tell me later. So that could be a pattern upon a pattern upon a pattern. So all day long, you're going to get messages. You're going to get visual, which would be a flashbacks, or something you like, a flashback, which would be trauma, or a flashback of an idea or whatever it is, or just a flash. You're going to hear something like people say, my God, my mother just came out my mouth. That's coming out of your unconscious. That's something you've learned from somebody else that you've adopted. And then notice if you're feeling any kind of anything, whether you're excited, whether you're anxious, whether you're depressed, whether you're whatever you are. So all day long, you can be checking in with yourself. Just take a deep breath and just, okay, body. I mean, after you get used to doing it, you don't have to have your eyes closed as much. You can just be like, even in the beginning, take a deep breath and to be like, I'm in the grocery store. Okay, I'm in the checkout line. Why am I feeling like this? Okay, hold on a second. I'm feeling like this because it's about to rain. It's going to torrential downpour, and I'm going to have a whole cart full of wet stuff. So
Hmm.
now I'm panicking because I don't want to go through that. Or, yeah. So it's something. There's something that's connected, not connected, similar, whatever, that your brain is picked up on and is giving you that response. So you can do this 24 hours a day. When you wait, when you're in the middle of the night and you're sleeping. I mean, I had this really interesting dream last night that I think I stole money. And I went into the bathroom in the middle of the night and I was like, brain, I didn't like that. And I finally realized what it was. My daughter is a server and she was counting her cash. And so in my brain was, it sorts through things when we're sleeping. It's cleaning house when we're sleeping, and it came up with the whole story. That money, I stole that money, and I was like, I wouldn't like that at all. I went back to bed and I said, we're not doing that anymore. Why are we doing this? This is not helpful.
Hmm.
Wait, this is not for me anymore. And then I went back to sleep, and boop, I was fine. So 24 hours a day, you have the opportunity to hear what your mind is communicating to you through the auditory, the kinesthetic, and the even the taste, smell senses. It's always there. It's always there, communicating all the time. It is knocking at you constantly, and you have plenty of opportunity, beautiful opportunity to say, What's going on? I'm curious.
Mhm. That's a wonderful explanation of how we can interact with these sensations throughout our days. If there's like this nagging
Yes.
feeling,
Yes.
then I'd say I don't know what your advice is as a professional. Then I maybe at that point it's time to see someone like you.
Yeah.
It's kind of out of the realm of where you feel like you can handle once you've crossed over that
Right.
realm of inquiring and being curious, then perhaps at that point it might be time to see someone like you who
Yeah.
can help alleviate those feelings if one can't do it
Yeah.
by
Well,
oneself.
they're not gonna be, didn't mean to cut you off, but they're not going to be able to do they're not gonna be able to do the unconscious shift work because they don't know how to do it yet. They
Mhm.
can do it, but not as effectively, permanently, successfully, as working with someone like me. Because when you move something out, you gotta bring something back in again. It's like filling up a at the beach, the water, you take it out, it comes back in again. And so you can't just take things away because if you take things away, the brain's like, yeah, I'm going to come up with a new story. And it's probably not going to be helpful because it doesn't know any different. And so, when you're noticing something that's just, um, again, like you said, that nagging feeling when there's something that's just not right. Something's just like, I'm not comfortable. Something, flashbacks are easy because they're like, I see them, but a lot of this stuff is in the body. It's in the body. And I have clients that have back problems, but they're like back here. And I said, well, just kind of take it out. And I use my technique, just kind of take it out. And let's just see whether it's back pain or whether it's your brain communicating with you. And she took it out and she says, oh, I feel a lot different. I said, yeah. So what do you think that was representing for you? So she had more information about that. So when you've got something, listen, when the body's a knocking, oh, that sounds so funny. But when the
Often,
body knocks, you answer the door and
right.
then contact someone like me to be able to quickly, effectively move you on to what you want to be feeling and experiencing. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, I didn't mention like someone like you who
Well, yes.
specializes in NLP,
Yeah.
more of the unconscious emphasis,
Yeah.
which I think, as we've both been discussing, is highly valuable.
Yes.
It's,
And use the
sometimes
mindfulness is you get into the mindfulness and then you get into the unconscious mindfulness. That's the key to this. So,
right,
yeah,
are naturally very connected and
yes,
connected with one
yeah,
another.
I would agree with that. Yes.
That's beautiful. So, if I don't know if you have any um, additional input or advice to give to people or understanding. We've covered a lot of material,
Yeah.
going from like the very basics of what NLP is, and then understanding a bit about hypnosis and trance work and how we can apply it to our everyday lives and society. And now we're here. We've covered a lot of ground, but I always ask my guests if they have additional inputs to conclude. If there's anything you'd like to mention that I haven't brought up.
No, I think that, I think there was, from my perspective, and remember that we're always we are in a state of trance more than we realize we are. Just to let people know that, like so much of our life is in trance. But no, really don't. I think we covered a lot. I think we got some good information out there.
Mhm.
I think that we got some good information about how mindfulness and NLP and hypnosis and the emerge model really can be like sisters, in a way of supportive of each other. So that was really cool because that was one of my curiosities was like how these two can really be a model of mindfulness and the NLP and hypnosis. So that was really fun to talk about that. And yeah, there's a lot more. I could go on and on and on and on because there's so much to this. I mean, I've been studying this for 4.5 years, on top of my formal college education. And so there's a lot out there. But if anybody wants to contact me, talk about it, or hire me or to talk about having just a session, just to see what it's like, to see what it can do for you, whether or not it's something that would be a benefit to you. Not everybody is going to be a candidate for me. So, we'd have to meet and just see what each one of us brings up for it, and what the issues are. And if somebody is interested in, who has an interest in this, the person who does this training is always, I'm always recommending, his name is Elvis Lester, and he's down in Tampa. People have flown in from Canada for training with him. He's brilliant. So, if you're interested in learning more about how to do this as a practitioner, contact me too, because it's a brilliant model. So yeah.
It certainly is. I've experienced it myself, as I mentioned, with Helen's wonderful facilitation, and it's really helped me kind of lift things that needed to be lifted and let go and replenish myself with good things, with nourishment. So I can testify to everything she's saying from personal firsthand experience. And if
Appreciate it.
it wonderful, yes, we do appreciate all the work that you do for the world. It's really beautiful, and I hope you feel appreciation from a
I
lot of
do.
places. Good, good, good. So if you want to reach Helen Brenner, please contact her through her website or look her up online. Her website is helenbrennercoaching.com, and I can leave that in the comments section under this video as well. And I just like to thank everyone for listening and tuning in. Thank you so much again, Helen, for being here. It's been wonderful having you on this episode. Thank you for coming on to this session and being here, sharing your wisdom, sharing your insight, and again, being brave with your material that you're putting forward into the world. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I loved having this conversation with you.
Wonderful. So I'll sign us out with a bell ring just to circulate the good energy that we've cultivated into the world. So for us, we might want to take a few deep belly breaths to relax, and for our
Mm.
listeners as well. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to talking about other topics next time. Thank you.